in from. We got a good show today. We are talking all about the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. Should be in for a great show this morning, this afternoon, wherever you're tuning in from. It's nice to hear from y'all. Make sure you tune in. We're in for a pretty good show. Let's get after it, y'all. We're in for a good one. I am not used to. All right. Let me tell y'all something. I am not used to using these mice. It's so bizarre to me to not to be using this thing. It's really, really bizarre. But that being said, there's a first for everything, I presume. So yeah. What was I gonna say? Anyway, yeah, we're just waiting. We're gonna get going here shortly. We're in for a good show, honestly. All about the Grand Prix of Long Beach, and I, for one, am very excited. If you're going, by the way, I hope to see you all there, because we should be in for a pretty good show, for a pretty good weekend of racing. All right, here we go, y'all. I think it's showtime. There we go. All right, y'all. Tune in. We should be in for a good one. I think I've said that enough times by now, but still, we should be in for a great show this afternoon. What a way to kick off our show. That was chill with Ignite here on Grand Prix Talk. Welcome everyone to the show that brings a Monster Cat mindset to the Dim Mak Records world of motorsport. Monster Cat and Dim Mak Records are two completely different record labels. Monster Cat provides a lot of the gaming soundtracks for games like Rocket League. Meanwhile, Dim Mak is run by the one and only Steve Aoki. So very, very different worlds there. Very, very different context of racing that I'm about to share. Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Sergio Morales. You can follow me on Instagram at Smorstagram. That is SMORstagram. You can follow me and watch this show on my YouTube channel, The Sergio Show. We're closing in on 200 subs, so shout out to all the 192 who are there right now. If y'all can subscribe, that'd be awesome. And you can also follow 22 West Radio on all socials at 22 West Hub. At least that's what it's reading up at the front of my screen here. And today we're in for a really good show, everybody. We're in for one of the bigger shows that I think I've done in recent times. We're talking all about the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. The 49th running of the race is scheduled for this coming weekend, April 19th through the 21st. Before we get to that, because that's going to take up the vast majority of today's show, let's first discuss some interesting news across the world of motorsport. Specifically, open wheel racing. IndyCar and Formula E have some pretty interesting things going on. Let's talk about Formula E first. An updated Formula E car is set to be revealed next weekend at the Monaco Prix on April 27th. This is all according to Racer.com, who is sharing that the Gen 3 Evo, that's going to be the name of this new car, will be revealed on Thursday, April 25th, not the 27th. The 27th is their Monaco Prix race day. But a week from tomorrow, on Thursday, April 25th, the Gen 3 Evo will make its debut, and it will race in seasons 11 and 12 of the FIA Formula E World Championship, aka the 2024-25 and the 25-26 seasons. According to Racer.com, Formula E says the new car will deliver even more dramatic wheel-to-wheel racing and have improved performance characteristics that will highlight Formula E and the FIA's role in pioneering technology and sustainable motorsport. That to me sounds like a good thing because Formula E, it's not like they really need that much upgrading as far as their competition goes. Like they're a seriously competitive league, despite their stupid little gimmicks like, that little attack mode thing. I think it's a little bizarre, but hey, what do I know, right? I'm just some guy talking to you at the 22 West Radio studio. That being said, Formula E does very well with their racing, and the Gen 3 admittedly looks a little weird. It kind of reminds me of a Dorito chip, if I'm truly honest with the car. But the Gen 2 and the Gen 2 Evo especially, I am so sad about the Gen 2 Evo. Like, that thing was one of the best looking race cars ever, and it's so sad that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that car never got to turn a wheel on the racetrack. So the Gen 3 Evo, however, will turn wheels on racetracks pretty soon. Racer.com reports the Gen 3 Evo will be the fourth Formula E car following the past three generations. The Spark Renault SRT 01E, that's literally what it's called. That was the first generation Formula E car, the car with which they debuted. The Spark SRT 05E, the second generation car, and the third generation car currently called the Gen 3. An evolution of the Gen 2 car that I just told you about, the Gen 2 Evo, had been set to roll out during the 2020/21 season, but was delayed before being scrapped completely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The main reason why that car was scrapped, though, was because running it for one season only before the introduction of the current Gen 3 car that Formula E races with, deemed uneconomical according to Formula E. So, this is interesting. This is some pretty good stuff coming from Formula E, if I'm truly honest with you. I mean, they're kind of on the rise for good reasons, honestly. For some pretty good reasons. The racing product is great. The drivers are very talented. And like I said, the car looks like a giant Dorito chip or even a triangular Coca-Cola bottle, if I'm honest. But hey, it's one of the fastest electric cars out there. And it's the fastest electric racing car out there right now. Maybe because it's one of the only ones. But hey, I won't say much. So what does Formula E bring to the table with the automakers? Racer Magazine also reports this. If you take a quick glance at the Formula E grid, you'll see identical cars, and you might think it's a one-make series, but that's not simply the case. Some of the brands that are in Formula E right now are Jaguar, Porsche, Stellantis via its DS and Maserati brands, Nissan, which I'm sure you've heard of, Mahindra, who's a privateers company, and China's Gusto Engineering. These are the brands that participate in Formula E, and apparently they all have heavy involvement. Except that it goes further beyond what you'd think. It's not just deliveries. So, cost cutting is a major factor in modern day motorsport. We all knew that. You'll see common major components used in everything from IndyCar, which we're about to talk about shortly, and NASCAR, to even the World Endurance Championship. Even Formula One, which prides itself on being constructor-centric, has common electronic components and allows a certain number of other parts to be shared between teams. Hence why there are teams like Haas and Ferrari, or Red Bull and RB, or heck, even Mercedes and Aston Martin, why they share like these sort of like engines and engine parts and that type of shebang. That's what they do. So, Sylvian Filippi, the team principal of Envision Racing, a Formula E team, tells Racer Magazine, "We decided 10 years ago when we started Formula E that we don't want to spend any energy on the static parts of the car, aka the chassis, the bodywork, the aerodynamics, basically the opposite of F1. Here with aerodynamics, we don't spend any time or resources whatsoever on it, with the view that it's not relevant to what we are trying to achieve, which is to improve electric cars." So, through Formula E, it looks like a lot of these car companies are learning about potential new EV technologies that they can throw into their actual cars on the road. Like Nissan, for instance. They're out competing in Formula E right now, and they have a tie-in vehicle that's actually on the roads right now as we speak. It's called the Nissan Aria. That's a little compact to mid-size electric SUV. I gotta say, I actually took a look at one of those things, and it's a nice car. Honestly, it's a really nice car. And for what you're getting, especially like the performance and such, it's pretty cool. I would like to see some more. I feel like I'm really hoping this is just the beginning for the Aria. And I think through Formula E, Nissan can really take what they learned from the racetrack and apply it to their road cars. I think that's the big thing that Formula E is bringing to the table, especially with so many of car manufacturers like Ford, who else? Chevrolet, like all these brands, Dodge even, that are switching to electric vehicles, whether you like it or not. In Dodger's case, it's such a twist. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, like what they bring to the tables can be very interesting. Now, with Formula E talked about, let's talk about IndyCar because they're going to be the main focus of today's show. Some interesting news that just dropped yesterday. IndyCar is set to roll out a new version of their aero screen for this weekend at the Long Beach Grand Prix. According to motorsport.com, the latest version of the aero screen that will be run at all remaining road and street course races is being rolled out for this weekend's Grand Prix of Long Beach. This new design is said to be updated with a lightweight aero screen that features new design to improve cooling through the driver in the cockpit. And looking at this aero screen right now in front of you, I'll actually show my YouTube live stream. Hey there, YouTube stream. I'll actually show you, like, here's what it looks like. I hope y'all can see it well. If not, I'm sorry. That's what it looks like. The main difference, I'd say, are these air vents over here, which is supposed to allow for, like, driver cooling and such. I'll say it looks neat. I'm hoping it actually serves its purpose. There's a few more vents around, so mainly, and I think it works well because, honestly, how does one actually live well being encapsulated in that thing for so long? The report reads that this, let's see, what is it? That this new aero screen was originally set to debut at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road course during the GMR Grand Prix on May 10th and 11th. But with enough supply for the entirety of the grid, the decision was made to move up the timeline to this weekend at Long Beach. After partnering with Red Bull Advanced Technologies, says Racer.com, the series introduced the aero screen in 2020 as part of the safety enhancements. The device, mandated for ovals, permanent road courses, and temporary street circuits, which is basically the entirety of the IndyCar schedule, so I don't know why they don't just say that, was constructed with a ballistic windscreen from PPG that is held with a titanium frame produced courtesy of Pankel. I hope I said their company name right. If not, I am so sorry. I'm just a guy here at the 22 West studio. Now, the new and improved aero screen holds steady at 14.5 pounds. The current version, that is, or now the previous version, weighed 18.8 pounds. So it's a loss of 4 pounds. It isn't much. I mean, that's roughly about as much food as I eat at In-N-Out Burger, to be honest with you. In-N-Out Burger sounds so good right now. I could really go for a cheeseburger. Anyway, 4 pounds less. This new aero screen versus the previous one. It's 3D printed with titanium, and it's mandated at the beginning of the season. It also reduces weight by, actually, I'm wrong. It actually reduces weight by 6.8 pounds. A combined drop of the whole aero screen, like everything part, the aero screen, the halo, all that stuff, it's a combined drop of 11.1 pounds compared to the previous gen of the aero screen. And like I said, it improves cooling. So I'd say it's actually a pretty good time. It's nice to see some innovation going on in IndyCar. With that said, I remain adamant. It's time for a new car. Like, legit. Don't get me wrong, I love the current gen IndyCar race car, but it's time to switch it up. You feel me? Like, it's just, we're getting to that time period. Now, I think that's just about everything that we've covered as far as the rundown goes. So let's talk about a few race results that we have had this past weekend, because NASCAR has taken to the racetrack at Texas Motor Speedway, where a fan favorite has come away victorious. So I'll run you down your stage's top 5 and then the race results top 10. At the end of stage number 1, Chase Briscoe took 5th place, Tyler Reddick 4th, Denny Hamlin 3rd, Christopher Bell 2nd, Kyle Larson would be the winner of stage number 1. Stage number 2 went to Ross Chastain in 1st place, with Bubba Wallace and Ryan Blaney 2nd and 3rd. Eric Jones and Chase Briscoe would finish 4th and 5th. Briscoe again with 5th place in the stage running. Now, our top 10 from Texas Motor Speedway with NASCAR looks like this. Carson Hocevar, car number 77. I have not heard of this guy too often. He finished in 10th place at Texas Motor Speedway, which I gotta say, like, hey, good on that lad. That's actually pretty cool to see. Kyle Busch would finish in 9th place, together with his teammate Austin Dillon finishing in 8th place. Bubba Wallace and Chase Briscoe would finish 7th and 6th. Chase Briscoe, at the end of it all, looks like he had a pretty consistent run. 5th, and 6th overall. It's pretty good stuff from Chase Briscoe. Daniel Suarez would finish in 5th place, which is what we like to see. Tyler Reddick finished in 4th. And our podium from Texas Motor Speedway consisted of William Byron in 3rd place, Brad Keselowski 2nd, Kyle Larson 1st, Denny Hamlin 2nd, Christopher Bell 3rd, And race winner Chase Elliott would snap a 42 race winless streak after a double overtime attempt at Texas Motor Speedway. He would come away victorious at Texas, snapping, like I said, 42 races that had passed by between his most recent win and the win prior to that. That's quite the streak. And the funny thing is, some people are already talking about Chase Elliott as a possible championship contender. I say let him cook. Let him cook. I think it's too early for me to see if he actually is going to be a championship contender. I just feel it's a little bit too early. I don't want to dog on any Elliott fans who are currently listening in, but I do gotta say, I just want to wait a little bit. That's all I'm saying. Now, with that being said, we have another race coming up for NASCAR, and they'll be racing on Sunday at Talladega Superspeedway, which is far and away the biggest track on the NASCAR calendar, measuring 2.66 miles. It's basically Daytona on steroids. And I don't know if anyone listening has ever been to Talladega Superspeedway. I have not. But just looking at it from television screens, it's a massive racetrack. And I'm just so curious about what it would be like to actually be there in person for it. Anyway, they'll be racing the Geico 500. That's NASCAR's race at Talladega this coming Sunday, April 21st. It will be at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll be able to watch it on Fox. So we should be in for a great race there. A very competitive one, hopefully. Meanwhile, Formula One, they're getting ready to race also. This weekend, they will be returning to Shanghai, China for the return of the Chinese Grand Prix. And this one, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. This race is hitting me with nostalgia, all right? Hear me out for a moment. The last time the Chinese Grand Prix was held was 2019. Netflix was only in their first or second season of Drive to Survive. I was in high school. I was in Key Club. Shout out to the Pirate Penguins of Division 19 North, for real. I was in Key Club. I was in high school the last time Formula One raced in China. That was Formula One's 1000th race that I actually tried to stay up for, but I completely knocked out. Like, bro, I don't know, man, but it's crazy to me that 5 years have passed by. That's right, 5 years have passed since the Shanghai International Circuit hosted Formula One. So what can we expect from China, from Formula One in China? I have no clue. I will be brutally honest with you. I am not one to predict what's going to happen at the Chinese Grand Prix this weekend. I want to say that we're going to get some good racing because of the unknown factor. This racetrack, I don't know how, none of us know how it's aged over the past 5 years. And not only that, but in between that time, a whole new era of aero regulations have kicked in. The engine has been changed up slightly, and it's going to get changed up again in 2026. There's just so much unknown, and I think it's going to be very interesting. I feel like, however, maybe we're going to get a race where it's like the less downforce and the more straight line speed, the better. Because the Shanghai International Circuit features like two really, really long straightaways. One of them is the DRS straight. I think it's like a mile in length or something, or close to it, or a kilometer. I don't know, but it's a really long back straightaway. And that's where I think some crazy moves are going to happen. And I'm also thrilled because we're going to get to see those cars go full send. That is exciting to me. So what has happened in China in the times that they have held the Chinese Grand Prix? Well, let's run you through the list. 2005, Michael Schumacher was still on the grid, and he was caught out in a pre-race crash. How does that happen for a 7-time Formula One world champion? Now, that being said, the following year in 2006, he actually would take his last Formula One victory, so redemption day for Michael Schumacher in China. The following year, 2007, one Sir Lewis Hamilton was competing in his rookie season of Formula One, and it did not go very well for him at all, at least not that day in China. For you see, first I need to watch this ad with MSC Cruises. MSC Cruises does not sponsor Grand Prix Talk, but if they want to, then hey, I am completely open to it. Now, Lewis Hamilton in 2007 was debuting. This was his rookie season in F1. They were racing in China that day. And something that happened was he went into the pit lane and he actually just lost control of the car just slightly, just a little bit too much. And he didn't hit the wall, but he did end up in the gravel trap and stalled the car. That would be the end of his race. And actually, as a consequence, that would be the end of his championship run. Kimi Raikkonen for Ferrari would take what would be his one and only F1 World Championship that year in 2007. Lewis Hamilton, as we know, or if you didn't know already, would take his maiden F1 World Championship in 2008, the following year. And at this time, if you believe this, Lewis Hamilton was racing for McLaren in 2007 and 8. Bizarre. 2009 would see Red Bull's maiden pole, maiden win, and their first ever 1 and 2 finish in Formula One history. For Red Bull, okay? Not like their first ever, like, they're not the first team to do it. But anyway, a whole new set of technical regulations for 2009 saw Braun GP, who had taken over the cancelled Honda Works effort, emerge as the class of the field. But Red Bull, who then were racing with Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber, were the team to beat in China. This would be the first time that they would take pole position, the race win, and their cars would finish 1 and 2 in the race. I get it, we're getting used to seeing that quite often nowadays in F1, but this is a race where it all started. Currently, Red Bull now, going into this year's Chinese Grand Prix, has 99 pole positions and 116 race wins to date. And don't forget, 2009, just the following year, Red Bull will get their first out of 4 consecutive drivers and constructors championships from 2010 and between 2010 and 2013, thanks to one Sebastian Vettel. In 2012, in the middle of Red Bull's absolute tear in the early 2010s, Mercedes would kick off their trophy-filled new era, as we call it here in F1. Well, Nico Rosberg would be taking Mercedes' first win for the team since 1955. It happened at the Shanghai International Circuit. And, well, that was 2012. Just 2 years later, Mercedes would go on the absolute tearing of the field that we now look back on kind of fondly. At least I do. It was crazy. And then, of course, 2019, the last time that the Chinese Grand Prix was held, that was Formula One's 1000th Grand Prix, a major milestone. The race, however, did not live up to that standard. I hate to say it. It was a pretty boring race, but it was pretty exciting in qualifying, mind you, as Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton, who were then driving for Mercedes, Hamilton, of course, still does, but he's moving to Ferrari at season's end. Hamilton would just nip pole position away from Valtteri Bottas. Actually, no, I'm wrong. Valtteri would take pole position ahead of Hamilton by just 0.023 seconds, 2/100ths of a second. And then, of course, Lewis Hamilton ran away with the race win, as we all know. Now, after a 5-year absence, China and the popular Shanghai venue, at least accordingly, it's a popular venue, would return to the Formula One roster for what promises to be another action-packed weekend of racing. And for the first time ever, the Chinese Grand Prix will see a sprint weekend, so keep an eye out for that. That should be a pretty good race. Let's see, what times is this racing going to happen? Well, be prepared to stay up late if you plan to watch the racing in the Chinese Grand Prix. The sprint race will happen Friday night, April 19th at, 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Pacific time, so should be pretty good stuff. Yeah, this Friday, April 19th, so hey, Friday night SmackDown, I guess, 8 p.m. And the race itself, the main event, will be happening Sunday, April 21st at midnight. So for anybody going to the Grand Prix of Long Beach but also wants to watch the F1 Chinese Grand Prix, needless to say, you're going to be sleeping past 2 in the morning. So hey, if you want to do it, by all means go for it, but I can't necessarily say that I encourage it because you're going to need all that extra energy for the Grand Prix. On that note, why don't we play a little bit of Kepler? Grand Prix is one of their newest songs, one of my favorite songs from Kepler for sure. In fact, it's my favorite. Be right back. We're going to talk about the Grand Prix of Long Beach here shortly. Stay tuned to Grand Prix Talk. All right. I think I covered all the previous stuff. Ah, shoot, I forgot about the World Endurance Championship. Whoops. I guess I'll have to ring that in here shortly in a little bit. But that being said, we should be in for a really good weekend of racing this weekend. I mean, everyone's going racing. NASCAR's going racing at Talladega. Let's see. F1's going to China. Who else? The World Endurance Championship is going to be in Imola in Italy. And then, of course, the big stuff, IndyCar here at Long Beach, should be in for a great afternoon, a great weekend of racing. So I'll be right back, chat. I'm just gonna flip this camera here. I'll be back here shortly. Haven't had any issues, have we? All right, chat. Let's see if I can solve this Rubik's Cube. I probably can't. If anything, I'm probably gonna make it worse. But hey, a man can dream, can't he? I don't know. If anything, I don't feel like trying to solve this Rubik's Cube. I feel like just making it worse. Or maybe not. All right, chat. You know what? Welcome to the random Grand Prix Talk break recovery live stream, where today we are going to try and solve a Rubik's Cube. How to solve a Rubik's Cube. What is this, a 3x3? A 3x3. Okay. How to solve a 3x3. This is going to take a while. I'm not going to have enough time to solve it at the time that this show comes up. Okay, keep white center on top, put the green piece center in front, facing you. Okay, that sounds fair. Find the green and white edge piece. It only has 2 colors. See, that's a problem, chat. I don't know. I don't know. It's a little confusing to me. Let's see. Okay. I don't know. Choose the options below. You know what? I'm just gonna make this a lot worse, but I'm here for it. Oh. Okay, perfect. I solved it. No, I didn't. Look at this Rubik's Cube. If anything, I think it looks even worse than it did before I even laid a finger on it. Let's get back to the show here shortly. Tune in, y'all. It's pretty good. It's getting good. Party collective ad. That's Party Collective. Tune in later tonight, 7 p.m. It should be in for a good show. Also, before we talk about the Grand Prix of Long Beach, I forgot something. The World Endurance Championship is also about to compete, so welcome back to Grand Prix Talk, everybody. Let's talk briefly about the FIA World Endurance Championship as they hit the racetrack at, let's see, Imola. Yeah, Imola. I forgot the real, I think it's like Autodromo, like Enzo and Dino Ferrari. Formula One is going to be racing there, and World Endurance Championship is going to go first. It's the 6 hours of Imola, and it should be in. This is our first ever running of the 6 hours of Imola. If you want to watch it, you can watch it on the digital platform HBO Max, where free practice 3 qualifying and the full live race will be broadcast starting at 3:30 in the morning. So do what you want, and it will end at 10:30 in the morning. So honestly, I say if you're going to the Grand Prix of Long Beach, but you want to watch some World Endurance Championship racing, wake up to it. It'll get you going. It'll get you ready for the race ahead. So that's where you can watch the World Endurance Championship. 6 hours of Imola. Should be in for a good race. I know IMSA is going to be at the Grand Prix of Long Beach here. So if anything, whatever IMSA does here in Long Beach, we might be able to get a preview of what's going on with the World Endurance Championship in Imola. And now, the moment that I have really wanted to come about, I get to share about the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. You just heard Grand Prix by Kepler if you want to tune into that song later on at the end of the show. So, the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. This race has quite a history. Legit. Like, it's closing in on 50 years or 50 runnings of the race. That'll be in 2025. But this year, this weekend's edition is going to be the 49th running of the race. So how did we get here? And how did the race do in between all those 48, 49 years? Almost 50, mind you. Well, let's start by going back in time to 1975, when one Christopher Puck, a race fan who also works as a travel agent, looked at the Monaco Grand Prix in the 1970s and decided, yeah, we can do that here in Southern California too. Why not? I got the money, presumably. And so his wild idea began on September 28th, 1975. This is chapter 1, the Wild Wild West. So gather around for a little story here. Christopher Puck looks at the Monaco Grand Prix, decides to do the same thing here in SoCal, and on September 28th, 1975, the first ever Grand Prix of Long Beach would take place. That was a Formula 5000 race. That league is now long gone. However, the Formula 5000 racing league was a pretty big deal back in the day, back when that was even a thing. Mario Andretti, if you haven't heard of him, then I don't know what to tell you. He's like one of the greatest racing drivers of all time, period. Mario Andretti would grab the pole position for this inaugural running of the Long Beach Grand Prix, clocking in a lap time of 1 minute 21.297 on that initial configuration. Keep this in mind. We are going to be talking about track reconfigurations a lot. Now, even though Mario Andretti would grab pole position, a guy named Brian Redman would take the race win. That race was 50 laps long and was completed in 1 hour and 10 minutes with 12 seconds. He would take the inaugural Grand Prix of Long Beach, get ready for this part, an entire 30 seconds ahead of second and third place. Those two were Vern Chapon in second place and Epi Whitesis in third place. I completely butchered those last names now, didn't I? 30 whole seconds ahead of the second and third places. So for anyone complaining about 23 seconds was max, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, granted, even I get a little bored of it, but hey, Brian Redman did a lot worse than that. And so there it was, the Acura, or not the Acura, but then the Grand Prix of Long Beach seemed to be a hit as it gathered over 60,000 fans, even though at the time Long Beach was not exactly a tourist hub. If anything, it was more industrialized with the port of Long Beach nearby. So what happens next? Well, that's when we get into chapter 2, the USGP West era. So it's a year later now, it's 1976, and the Long Beach Grand Prix is being rebranded, reworked, everything to become the United States Grand Prix West as it joined that year's Formula One World Championship. Now, the 1976 edition of the race would also see Long Beach's first of several track reconfigurations, but the 1976 track rebuild was slightly less obvious compared to what would transpire in later years. So this would be the first of 2 races to be held in the United States. The other in the 1976 season was the United States Grand Prix East, creatively named, in Watkins Glen International, a now world-famous racetrack in the state of New York. I gotta point this out though, Watkins Glen is not near New York City. So if you're thinking about a vacation to New York City to go see NASCAR, I got news for you, my friend. It's a little bizarre. It's a little bit of an interesting situation. Now, Watkins Glen, however, would later become one of the most popular racetracks anywhere in the United States, as it's now hosted IndyCar, NASCAR, and Formula One. And I gotta say, that racetrack is pretty fun to drive on in Forza. So, the United States Grand Prix West would really become a mainstay in Formula One, especially after the USGP East was later deemed like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Go take over the world somewhere else. Quote that from Josh Ravel on YouTube. Basically, Watkins Glen could no longer afford the increasing costs of hosting Formula One in their background, so they dropped out of the calendar. And so the United States Grand Prix West basically became the go-to race in America for Formula One. I mean, like it already hadn't already. It was already going to be even more so. And especially during this era, during the 70s and 80s, this was when the Long Beach Grand Prix really started to deliver some crazy race winners. Ferrari and Ford have each split the F1 race wins at Long Beach. During the late 1970s, drivers from Ferrari have won 3 times in Long Beach. Clay Regazzoni in 1976, Carlos Runeman in 1978, and one Gilles Villeneuve in 1979. Rest in peace. Gilles Villeneuve, as we all know, would later get his own racetrack, or at least a racetrack named after him, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, Canada. Those 3 have won for Ferrari in the streets of Long Beach. All other wins in Long Beach that came after that during the USGP West era, those came from teams that were powered by Ford. And we already know how Ford versus Ferrari goes. It's a pretty interesting, it's an interesting battle. What can I say? So, in 1977, Mario Andretti, the guy who got pole position for the inaugural running of the Long Beach Grand Prix, was driving for Lotus, a team powered by Ford. And in 1977, he would take the first race win of his career in Long Beach. This was the race that put Long Beach on the map in the racing world. Jim McCallion, Michaelian? I don't know how you say his name. Like, I wish I could talk to the lad so I could ask him how his last name is pronounced. But this guy, Jim Michaelian, now the president and CEO of the Grand Prix Association of Long Beach, was the race's financial officer in that time period in the 1970s. And he had this to say about Mario Andretti's race win. Mario's victory really changed the whole image of the race. We made the New York Times, Sports Illustrated, and the race was all over the local and national news. So 1977 really is the race for Long Beach, or at least one of them at least. There's a lot more to come, trust me. In 1980, as a new decade rolled in, a new race winner, a new driver would take his first win in Long Beach by the name of Nelson Piquet. He was driving for Brabham and Ford. Yes, Brabham was powered by Ford at that point. Now, in 1980, additionally, on top of Nelson Piquet's first career victory, a little car brand from Japan that happened to be based in California decided, hey, we could be title sponsors of the race for, what is it, all the way through at least through the 2000s. They're called Toyota. And such as 1980 came around, the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach would become a thing. The following year, 2 years later, in 1982, Niki Lauda, rest in peace also, he was driving for McLaren, who were also powered by Ford during that time period. This year saw the first ever major track reconfiguration. It was also the first time that Formula One was going to hold 3 races in the United States. In 1982, apart from Long Beach, Formula One also raced on the streets of Detroit and on a pretty rancid parking lot in Las Vegas. The latter, Las Vegas, would later join Miami and Austin in the present day to have 3 American races on the calendar starting from 2023. Of course, we got the Miami Grand Prix and F1 coming up pretty soon, so keep an eye out for that. Austin and Vegas have just hosted their races last year. They're going to do it again in 2024, and in 2025, the F1 calendar has dropped, so check it out. But anyway, as I said, 1982 was a pretty big season, almost on par with 1976, but Niki Lauda would be the race winner that year in Long Beach. So, what happens next? We've already covered like some big race winners, and trust me, there's a lot more to come pretty soon. But there's just one problem. Money. You know, Mr. Krabs' favorite thing in the world. And Long Beach really didn't have as much money that Formula One was demanding so that they could host the Long Beach Grand Prix. Formula One, as we know, is extremely expensive, and during this time period, the 70s and 80s, this was when their costs really started to skyrocket. And much like Watkins Glen before it, Long Beach just couldn't afford to host F1 anymore. So surely that meant the demise of the Long Beach Grand Prix, right? Wrong. Because here in Chapter 3 comes a little league called CART. Chapter 3. Hello, we are CART, the championship auto racing teams. Formula One would leave the streets of Long Beach after 1983 when costs got too high for the latter to keep hosting them. So CART, the championship auto racing teams, came up with an offer to start racing there in the following year in 1984. And Long Beach says, yeah, why not? Let's do it. The 1984 edition of the Long Beach Grand Prix saw Mario Andretti win yet again, but this win was more recognizable because of the car he was driving that day, a Budweiser Haas Lola car. That's literally what it's called, sponsored by Budweiser, built by Haas and Lola. Yeah, I gotta say, I see, like, the car in photo is actually a really nice looking car, and it stands as one of the most iconic race cars in history now. So, you know, take that as you will. So Mario Andretti would pick up another victory in the streets of Long Beach. Once again, Long Beach was being talked about all over the racing world. Mario Andretti would take a total of 4 race wins. Apart from the ones that he had in F1 and in CART, he would take another 2 wins in 1985 and 1987. His son Michael Andretti would also win 2 races in the streets of Long Beach. One of them was his first ever career victory. That came in the year 1986. The second time that Michael Andretti won the race was the year I was born, 2002. I wasn't around when that year's Long Beach Grand Prix happened, but hey, it happened in the same year that I was born, so take that, take it with a grain of salt, I guess. Now, during this time period, a lot of track redesigns happened. 3 of them, in fact. The first another track redesign happened in 1992, which eliminated a chicane after the hairpin. So starting from 92 onwards, they would be racing with a different configuration. Yet another track reconfiguration occurred in 1999 as there was construction going on. I believe it's now called the Pike, you know? I think you may have heard of it. The Pike Outlets, if you haven't been there, I do recommend it. It's nice. Not this weekend though. It's going to be insane. So the Pike Outlets saw construction, and that meant there was going to be a little bit of a track reconfiguration. So the fountain turn that is still in use today, I don't know if you've ever seen, but nowadays in the streets of Long Beach, there's like a nice fountain with like a dolphin and such. That got incorporated into the racetrack in 1999. And then finally, Y2K, the year 2000, saw one more track redesign, the one that gave us the track that we know and love today. That year, one Paul Tracy, thank you for the like, one Paul Tracy would win his second of 4 total Long Beach wins. All of his wins came in the years 1993, 2000, and back-to-back wins in 2003 and 2004. So the year 2000 gave us the racetrack that we know now, the one that we be going to every year here in the streets of Long Beach. Now, Chapter 4 is a very bizarre one because IndyCar would really start to see just, or not even IndyCar, kart as a whole, like they would just start to tear up within itself. Chapter 4, let's split up, gang. Didn't go well at all, trust me. While NASCAR started to experience a massive boost in popularity, open wheel racing in America was in a downward spiral. Karts and the IRL split in the late 90s, contributing to a massive drop in popularity of American open wheel racing. NASCAR's over here just like, yeah, we ready for some money in my hands. Now, Long Beach would see itself virtually unaffected, so to speak, by hosting kart on their streets. Thing is, though, they also raced at the nearby California Speedway, which is now known, or was known, as Auto Club Speedway in Fontana. Unfortunately, there was one driver who was killed there. His name is Greg Moore. He was killed in a massive wreck at California Speedway in 1999. So that, as if they already needed any worse publicity, open wheel racing was only going even worse from here on out. So, karts, the championship auto racing teams, and the IRL, the Indy Racing League. That is how the two American open wheel racing leagues look like around this time period. But then something happened. Karts was suddenly not a thing anymore. Instead, there was Champ Car, the successor to karts, and they would be the ones racing in the streets of Long Beach between 2004 and 2007. The good news is, however, that even with this split, there was still a great list of race winners being added to, hold on. I still remember when Tony Stewart, reading this comment, I still remember when Tony Stewart had to switch numbers. He once won number 14, I believe, then he switched to number 20. See, that's the thing, my friend. I had no idea about that. I do remember seeing him race with both cars 14 and 20, but I guess I wasn't around during that time to really see it happen. I got into IndyCar in 2012. Stay tuned, I got more to tell about that one. So, between 2004 and 2007, kart's successor Champ Car would race in the streets of Long Beach. The good news is, the already prestigious list of winners was only going to keep growing. Some of the winners between this time period were, and I'm not limiting this is just a few of them, Juan Pablo Montoya, who would later become a 2-time Indy 500 winner. He won the Long Beach Grand Prix in 1999 after the split happened, and he would win the Indy 500 in the years 2000 and the year 2015. Don't remind me of that second one. Elio Castroneves is another guy that you might recognize in the racing world. He became eventually a 4-time winner of the Indy 500. He's only one of 4 people to do it. He won the Long Beach Grand Prix the same year he won his first Indy 500 in 2001. And mind you, he was a rookie in 01. So that already signified what that lad was about to become. A massive legend in the world of racing. And of course, we also got to talk about Sébastien Bourdais, a Le Mans native from Le Mans, France, gee, I wonder, and the only guy to have ever won Champ Car's championships. On his way to his 4 Champ Car championships between 2004, 5, 6, and 7, he would also take 3 consecutive wins in the Long Beach Grand Prix, winning the race in 2005, 2006, and 2007. Now we move forward to the present day, Chapter 5. I was just a kid in 2008, right? I was, 5 or 6 years old? I was playing my Nintendo DS, playing Super Mario Brothers. Shout out, that game was so much fun. and a global recession hit in 2008. You know, mom and dad were too busy trying to figure out how they were going to pay the bills, whilst I was too busy there playing my Nintendo DS. IndyCar, meanwhile, was finally won again. They had reunited kart and the IRL to become IndyCar as we know and love it today. That league would make its debut in 2008, but the Long Beach Grand Prix was not the race where it debuted. That honor went to the streets of St. Petersburg. Shout out to our friends over in St. Pete, Florida. Y'all host some pretty good races, I gotta say that for sure. So, by the time the 2008 season of racing had rolled around, IndyCar had finally become united again, and it's now the IndyCar that we know and love today. The 2008 Long Beach Grand Prix, however, was a really interesting one. For one, the full unification of IndyCar hadn't been completed yet. And so we had this weird thing where the existing IndyCar teams competed in a race called the Indy Japan 300 over in Twin Ring Motegi, now called Mobility Resort Motegi, in Japan. This race would prove to be an historic one, as Danica Patrick would become the first woman and to date still the only woman to win an IndyCar race. So that was a huge deal. Meanwhile, here in the streets of Long Beach, California, we saw some former Champ Car teams race in our streets using the 2007 Panos GP01 chassis, which has basically become synonymous with Champ Car even to the present day. Now, both of these races, interestingly enough, counted towards the season title in 2008. So, in 2008, we would see one Will Power take the race win. Now, we're going to talk about Will Power here briefly. All you got to know is he is far and away my favorite driver in IndyCar racing, for sure. So, the following year, 2008 saw Danica Patrick take a historic race win in Japan, and Will Power take his first of what is to this present day 2 career wins on the streets of Long Beach. I hope he gets a third this weekend. So, since then, this is a list of people who have won the Long Beach Grand Prix and what they have done since. So we already talked about Will Power. He won in 2008 and he won in 2012. Now that second one is significant for me personally because my dad and I went to that race completely out of the blue. I still remember my dad woke me up the morning of the race. I mean, we went to church and everything. At least I remember, I think. We had breakfast, and then we were in the middle of the streets of Long Beach. And what I noticed is there's a bunch of like concrete walls and fencing, sponsors. And then I hear like a bunch of loud cars roaring in, and I think, oh, we're at a car race. So like, you know, 9-year-old me was pretty excited already. I didn't realize that that wasn't NASCAR though. It was a little league called IndyCar, which I'm thinking to myself like, all right, this is new. Well, the race itself proved to be a banger. It was a great race, honestly. And Will Power would take his, I believe that was going to be his second of 3 consecutive race wins in 2012. Prior to Long Beach, he won Barber, and after Long Beach, he won a race in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So Will Power would take the 2012 Grand Prix of Long Beach, and it was significant to me because I didn't know anyone else in IndyCar. So seeing Will Power win is like, okay, that's my driver. That's the guy I'm going to root for. And to this present day, I still root for Will Power. So Will, if you're listening, my friend, good luck this weekend. Please get yourself some hardware this weekend. I really want to see it. It'd be awesome. So that is 2012. His second career win. Will Power would later on go on to become a 2-time IndyCar champion in 2014 and 2022. He would also win the 2018 Indianapolis 500. Dario Franchitti, an old rival of Will Power, he's a 4-time IndyCar champion and 3-time Indy 500 race winner. All 3 of those race wins that Dario Franchitti got at the Indy 500 came under caution, interestingly enough. And Will and Dario have fought for championships before, several times of which Dario has won. Dario Franchitti, would win the 2009 edition of the Grand Prix of Long Beach on his way to his 2009 championship victory. Another big race winner that we had, one that I think does not get talked about enough, is Mike Conway. He is a 2-time Le Mans race winner, and he is now an FIA World Endurance Championship champion. Yeah, FIA World Endurance champion during the 2020-21 season. He would also win the Long Beach Grand Prix twice, in 2011 and in 2014. The 2014 race was significant because that was IndyCar's one and only standing start at the Long Beach Grand Prix. And to this day, I still think IndyCar should bring back standing starts, but I understand from a safety standpoint why they wouldn't want to. So, like I said, Conway has since become a 2-time winner at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It's a pretty big deal. Another driver, Takuma Sato. He won the Long Beach Grand Prix in a major shock in 2013. He would become the first Japanese driver, and I believe the first driver of Asian descent to ever win the Long Beach Grand Prix. He did it in 2013, the very year after Will Power did it for the second time. And since then, he has become a two-time Indianapolis 500 champion, winning in 2017 and in 2020. Now, this guy, he's the guy that, his Indy 500 wins basically brought me into the K-pop world. I just want y'all to know that. Like, if there's anyone to blame, it's Taku. Scott Dixon, a six-time IndyCar champion, searching for an historic 7th later this year. He won the 2008 Indianapolis 500 as well, and he won the 2015 Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. So Scott Dixon is, of course, another driver you want to keep an eye on. And Alexander Rossi, a California native from Nevada City up north in the state. He was the winner of the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500 in 2016. I was there for it. It was a truly memorable race. You would hope that out of Indianapolis, though. He's also a two-time winner of the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach in 2018 and 19. I was there for both of those race wins. So, I gave you basically a list of drivers you want to keep an eye on at this weekend's Grand Prix of Long Beach. So, what happened in between? You know, I just gave you like a whole list of reasons of drivers to watch. So what about the years when it wasn't held? Or accurately, the year it wasn't held? Well, the Toyota sponsorship ended in the year 2018, which saw Alexander Rossi take his first of two back-to-back wins. Acura, which is Honda's luxury brand, came in and took over the title sponsorship role. Since then, the race is now called the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, as we know it now today. Now, since that time, since 2019, some interesting things have happened in the world, as you might know. One thing is called the COVID-19 pandemic. The year 2020, of course, saw everything shut down, and the Grand Prix of Long Beach was not exempt from that. That was the only year to this day that the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach was not held in 2020. The following year, in 2021, it was originally going to be held in April. However, the race was actually postponed to late September due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The good news is, though, that year, 2021, saw Long Beach actually crown an IndyCar champion in one Alex Palou. He would win his first of, to this present day, 2 championships. Alex Palou is also the defending IndyCar champion, so if you're at the racetrack, keep an eye out for car number 10 or 28. He drives for DHL. That's what you gotta know. And that day saw Colton Herta from Valencia, California, you know where Six Flags Magic Mountain is at. There's a guy named Colton Herta. He is from Valencia, California, and he would win the Long Beach Grand Prix, his home race, in 2021. This was such a good race, legit. The following year, 2022, saw Joseph Newgarden take a victory, and the year after that, Kyle Kirkwood became a Long Beach Grand Prix winner. These 2 victories are significant. Joseph Newgarden is now a 2-time IndyCar champion. He also went on to win the 2023 Indianapolis 500, beating Marcus Ericsson to the punch. Kyle Kirkwood, meanwhile, the winner from last year, he won it as a rookie. In his first season in IndyCar racing, his first career win comes at the Long Beach Grand Prix. Some other drivers that have done it, Michael Andretti, Takuma Sato, Mike Conway. Just throwing that out there. Just saying. Keep an eye out for Mr. Kirkwood this weekend as well. And one more thing to cover, there's this little league. We talked about Formula E at the beginning of the show, right? Well, they've also raced in Long Beach as well. In the 2015 and 16 seasons, Formula E would race on the streets of Long Beach on a modified configuration of the track that only they have ever raced on. The two times that the race was held, Nelson Piquet Jr. and Lucas deGrassi came away victorious. Nelson Piquet Jr. would follow in his dad's footsteps because Sr. actually ended up getting his first career win in F1 in the year 1980 on the streets of Long Beach. Piquet Jr. did it in Formula E at the first season. So, you know, pretty interesting stuff. It's nice to see. And Lucas deGrassi, the winner of the second and to this day the final Long Beach E Prix, as it was called. Bring it back, please. deGrassi has since become a Formula E champion in the 2016-17 season. So, all of this that I just covered, I just rambled on for the past half hour or so about the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach and who you should keep an eye out for and how the track has changed and evolved and all that good stuff over the years. My conclusion is Long Beach does it better than most. I gotta say that for sure. This weekend's edition, coming up April 19th through the 21st, is going to be the 49th edition of the race. where IndyCar will be the main talk of the weekend. Support series include the Stadium Super Trucks, SRO's GT America, which I'm very excited for, and the big one is going to be the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Whatever they do, I have a feeling that that's going to transpire over to the World Endurance Championship in Imola this weekend. So definitely keep an eye out for that if you're going to the race this weekend, and if you're not, then I strongly recommend you do. 2025, meanwhile, next year's edition, will see a major milestone in the Long Beach Grand Prix in its 50th running of the race, officially making it the longest running street race in the United States. It's for this reason that this race is now called America's Monaco. Outside of the Indianapolis 500, for IndyCar drivers, the Long Beach Grand Prix is the race to win. As far as road courses and street circuits go, all across America, Long Beach is the go-to to win it. That's like the top dog. It's called America's Monaco for a reason. Then, of course, there's the Indy 500, but that's like an league all by itself. So, if you are going to the race this weekend, I hope to see you all there. Keep an eye out for some of our buddies from the Daily 49er, shout out Alina, who are going to be there also throughout the weekend. So if you see them, make sure you say hello. I hope to see you at the racetrack also. It's going to be a great weekend of racing. But if you can't make it to the race, that's okay, I understand. You can watch it though. You can watch it on television. The Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach IndyCar race, the main show, will be broadcast at 12 noon Pacific Daylight Time, this Sunday, April 21st, on USA Network and the Peacock streaming service. If you want to watch the IMSA race, which is happening the very day before, on Saturday, April 20th, that will also be on USA Network and on Peacock at around 2 p.m. Pacific time. So keep an eye out for that. We got a great weekend of racing going on. We should be in for a fantastic show at the Long Beach Grand Prix this weekend. Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Grand Prix Talk and this little history lesson I gave you of the Long Beach Grand Prix. I hope, like I said, follow me on Instagram at Smorstagram, SMORstagram. If you're going to the race, I hope to see you all there. But otherwise, follow us, 22 West Radio at 22 West. Follow me, Smorstagram. I hope to see you all pretty soon. Also follow me on YouTube. Yeah, anyway, thank you all for tuning in. This is Sergio Morales signing off. See you this weekend at the Long Beach Grand Prix. And if not, tune in next week for a recap. See you then. I'd say I rambled on. My voice was just full send. I think it was awesome. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope to see you at the race this weekend. Otherwise, I'll see you pretty soon.